Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the morning call. So every single day, guys, we do this call Monday through Friday, and then on Wednesday, we do it live on YouTube. So today, the topic is it's finally time to make some money on eBay. And yesterday, I was doing the update for all of my expenses. So once in a while, I go through and double check and see where everything is at. And what spurred me to do that was I got my DMV registration. So it was interesting. We bought a new car a year ago because new cars were cheaper than used cars for some reason during that time because of the weird supply shortage. And the registration for my car, which was $33,000 brand new, was $453, which I find outrageous because it's higher than the initial registration when I got the car. And the car is now used, but they base it off of the value of the car. And used cars are worth more than new cars now, which is so weird. So the used value that they use to assess my car is higher than what I paid for it. So good old California, $453. And I was just thinking, who can afford like a BMW? This is a Toyota. I'm paying $453 for registration. And I was doing like, if you have a nice car, it costs you like $1,000 just to put a license plate on it in California. So it's crazy. So yesterday I was inspired by a comment that Catherine made. She said, in 4 years, she wants to pay off her house, right? And I was looking, okay, what happens if you pay off your house? So I was doing that for myself, assuming I cashed out everything and paid off my homes. My expenses would drop by a lot. Now I can see why a lot of people want to pay off their home because their housing is such a big percentage of their monthly nut or how much they need to make each month. So it inspired me to think, okay, everyone in the goal should be thinking, how do I make enough money? Let's play some offense. Let's make some money to put down enough to buy another rental property, because once you pay that off in 30 years, that extra income too adds to your whatever you need to live. So let's play some offense. Let's break down how much money we need to buy another property or to pay off our existing property to get that big chunk of the monthly mortgage or house payment or rent back in your pocket. It's pretty excited to hear that. So I was redoing my ideal rich life, and I definitely don't want a nice car now. I would rather just not have any bills. It's nice, like I just never thought of no house payment because I've never not had rent or a mortgage, never had no house payment. So I just did the math on not having one. It was literally mind blowing. So that's where I'm at, I guess. And this is a little bit revealing, but maybe you guys will take some inspiration from this, but I'm going to share what my bills are. I don't know if you guys would find this useful or not, but let's do it. Okay. So this is crazy to do publicly, but so my housing cost right now is $6,001. But if I paid off my mortgages, I'd only pay $941 per month. So assuming I pay off my homes, my monthly nut in California would only be $29.74 a month, which is pretty low. Also, right now I'm spending $3,000 on childcare. So I'm probably going to pay off my car this year, but then I'll have no car payment. That's the only debt that I have right now. So I was telling you guys, I have a difficult time saving money. So I sort of treat it as a bill. So my SEP IRA, which is a 401k for a business owner, I don't know what it's like in the UK. I'm assuming in the UK, you have something like a SEP IRA, but you can contribute more than the 401k if you work for yourself. So my limit this year is 66,000. So when you run your own business, they assume that you're behind on your retirement, so you can invest a lot more into it. So I have $5,500 a month going into SEP IRA, $6,000 into a savings account for real estate. And the goal is to buy a new property every 2 years forever. So that's the real estate plan. To run my business, it costs 5,000. Let's see. It costs around $5,000 a month for warehouse, electricity, internet. In California, you have to pay for an S Corp. but my monthly recurring bills are not that high. It's only $492 for all my recurring bills, and this is just the stuff I need to run my business. And I actually put YouTube Premium as one of my business expenses. So YouTube Premium and Amazon Prime are really my only subscriptions. I use my brother's Netflix. So down here in the credit card, I don't use, this is so weird to say out loud. You see these credit cards right here? I don't use any of them. This is my credit card limit is $272,500. I don't use any of them. I use this Capital One Spark Plus card, which doesn't have a limit because it's a charge card. So this card I have to pay off in full every month. There is no, you can't carry a balance. They will cancel. So I don't use any of this credit card balance, which is weird because it periodically goes up without me doing anything because all these credit card companies increase my limit. So then I have 3 annual fees. I'm going to downgrade my Chase Inc. and my Capital One Spark card after this year because I signed up to get a welcome bonus. I was playing the credit card hacking game, which I now realize is a waste of time. You should just work on your business instead. But I'm knowledgeable on how to play the credit card game if you guys want to do that to get free travel. The Capital One Spark card that I use you get a $200 bonus every year if you spend over 200K. So that covers your annual fee. So essentially, I don't have an annual fee on my credit cards, and I get 2% back on this Capital One card, 2% back. So I don't use any rewards at this point, just cash back. So that's how the business side works for me, $5,000 to just run that part. And then here, looking at my expenses, they're $12,000 a month. 3,000 of it is childcare, which is a lot. I will tell you for sure, taking care of babies is harder than running a business, at least from my experience. It's really, really, really time consuming and it takes a lot out of you. So it's interesting looking at all of our bills. The two of us combined, we don't drive 1,000 miles a month, but I rounded up. I think I only drive 300 miles a month. And then I have two-way insurance, which I don't really need. I could do it. But so anyway, the whole point of this conversation is you can make unlimited amount of money, but if you really hunker down, this is, I feel like I'm very frugal. I'm pretty cheap. I don't spend that much on anything. And it's still $12,000. And every single one of these things went up, which is crazy. My mortgage went up, property tax went up, insurance went up, registration went up, cell phone bill. My cell phone bill stayed the same. Groceries went up, gym membership stayed the same. But I don't know. It's pretty insane. Well, so I guess let me know in the chat, guys, if you guys ever look at your expenses, but I know how much money is going out every month. It's kind of eye-opening, but it's around $23,000 a month going out. Yeah. Oh, Joel is saying is the $941 a month just utilities? That's utilities plus property tax plus insurance. Would be $941 for 2 properties. Your insurance went down by 50 this month. That's great. But every time you save money, it's like an excellent investment of your time. So then, yeah, after you have that all set up, now it's just about offense. Let's make some money now, because I can't sacrifice any of these without sacrificing my quality of life. I want insurance. I want 2 cars that go from A to B. I want to live in California by grandma. So like all these things that you want, if I were to move to Montana, my quality of life would go down. Yeah, definitely moving to a different state would be cheaper, but also I would say that easily, because I live in California, it's easier to find stuff. So what do you guys think? Is it better to live somewhere cheap and your cost of living is much lower, but it's harder to find stuff, or live somewhere where it's easy to find stuff, but your quality of like costs a lot more to live there? Well, Beth says live where you are happy. That's probably the cheapest way to do it. Jen says cheap and cast a bigger net. Wow, Nancy has 8 acres, 1 rental property, and a building, $600 mortgage. Oof. $600 mortgage. I love it. That's so awesome. Mine's literally 10 times more. That's wild. Um, live where your niche is. Joel said if he had the choice, he would live somewhere cool. Um, okay. So I who here is not inspired by saving a big chunk of money to buy a piece of real estate or pay off your house? Anything bigger than that? What do you guys think? Um, M says your storage unit costs more than 600, right? Yeah, but I like to separate business and personal. I have my personal bills on one side, and my business bills on the other side. Mandy wants to save money to buy another piece of property. That's fantastic. Um, so yeah, we want to get a new place every 2 years while we're married. Hopefully forever. Hopefully that's forever. The thing is, when I think that California is expensive, I still see people with like multiple homes, multiple charities. Yesterday, I went to the zoo. I've been going to the zoo regularly with Natalie because they said that you're supposed to spend time with your older sibling or older kid when the new kid is born. So we've been going to the zoo once a week, and I I can't even tell you how many people have donated seven figures or more. The amount of people that have donated more than $1 million to the zoo is more than the people listening on this call. How? Right? How are they doing that? Like making enough money and you can donate $1 million to the zoo? Let's try to be that person. And there's one person that donated 20 million dollars to the zoo or something, and they didn't even put their name. It just says anonymous. That's more than the zoo collects in admissions all year. Chris, do you want to chat about everything store making over 100K? Because are you talking about yourself?
Yeah, we have a store that made over 100K last year, for like an everything. And I know you guys were
I
talking
would
about
go ahead.
what's that?
I would say that you're probably not an everything store, but go ahead.
Um, I mean, we've sold everything. I mean, we've done pallet ship outs, we've sold larger items locally, we've sold I mean, it's crazy. We literally have four Connexes at our house, that's filled with basically everything. We're still running three stores, but the one store I'm working with you guys, I'm actually niching down to just clothing.
Yep.
Um, but it was about 167 last year on
Do,
taxes.
do you feel like you're capped because of
Yes.
how very
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe that's how we should describe it. Now that I am niche down, I feel like there is no cap. It's just more you add more sourcing, more people, it grows just linearly. I don't have, but it's like I realize now for me to grow, it's just 100% HR.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
just finding the right people.
the
Go ahead.
effort we put into it was so minuscule. Like we never tracked like what we were making. We never did coupons, promotions, or markdowns. On that, it was straight list and forget, and then when it
Yep.
sold, and we were doing like a lot of pallet liquidation, flea markets, and just buying like anything and anything that would make profit.
What is
So
your, can I ask what your operation looks like? Is it your family? How do you guys do it?
it's me and my girlfriend. We run it. So she operated the bigger store. So anything over $50 we'd put up in her store.
Okay.
Anything under that we would put in my store. And then we do shipping together. And hers was doing 130, mine's doing roughly about 50 because it was low garbage items. And that's a store I'm slowly taking down and going strictly to men's clothing. We also do a consignment store and a decal store.
How do you divide your time? And do you feel like, why the
Well,
change? Why join our group and niche down?
well, I was in the group before, but being an everything seller, it was hard to follow the same structure. So I actually left and then I rejoined about February. And I really wanted to change up. Just I wasn't making the money I wanted to make.
Hmm.
And that's why I niched down to clothing. I mean, there's still a lot of garbage in my store. I'm about 5,200 listings.
Yep.
Um, so I wanted to bring it. I was talking to Tech about it before, and he said bring it up on the Tuesday call. But I'm in the process of selling a extra house, so I had to work on that last night. So I didn't get to talk to him about it. And we were talking about it in private messages, and I couldn't make it the call last night, so I wanted to bring it up this morning just because it shocked me when you guys were talking about, you put it out there and nobody else was saying that they're doing like over 100K for like an everything seller, and it just
Yeah.
shocked me. And I can send you like information. Like I've
No,
been sending
I
you,
believe you. We're not saying it's not possible. It's just
yeah.
that it is more difficult than just doing one.
Okay. Yeah, it just blew my mind that like I thought a majority of people were like, that were selling everything over 100K. Like I didn't think it was a minority, so it was more of like a shock to me.
What state do you live in?
North Carolina.
Okay. And then I just want to point out, guys, that Chris is using me as an accountability partner, and you guys are all welcome to do that. You can either send me an email at chris@dailyrefinement.com, or you can DM me on Facebook or Instagram. Let me know what you're doing every day. I'm not going to respond, but I'll read your progress over time and see how consistent you are and what you like
And
if
you
you say you're going to do.
and you actually called me out on one day because I was waiting until I had finished and I was getting my process. So sometimes with doing clothing, it was taking me longer until 12 o'clock. And I've gotten my times pushed down to do it in the morning. That's why I'm sending you like those messages early in the morning, because there was times that I was waiting until I finished everything to send you that message. And I actually missed a couple of days of sending you that message. And I think on one of the ones you called me out. So I was like, well, I need to change up and get you that information early in the morning. So that's like, I think every message I've sent you is between 4 a.m. and about 7 a.m.
That's a good way to do it. Yeah. This group is just about building habits. And if you are an everything seller, it's more difficult to build habits. You can, especially if you have like really strong willpower, you can get up and be like, all right, take a deep breath. We're listing 20 different things today, right? You can do that. It's just more difficult than if it's the same thing, you can just get into a habit and you don't have to think about it. It's just like show up. It's the same thing that you're listing as yesterday, and you're done way earlier. And for some people, I feel like they want to reach through the screen and be like, Chris, you do not know how much joy I get from selling everything. Don't you know that's who I am? And I'm like, you do whatever you want to do. I'm just saying it's easier if you do one, more narrow.
And I'm different too. Like I don't like going out thrifting. I actually like listing. Like I enjoy sitting there listing stuff. I'd rather not go out thrifting. I'd just rather have everything brought to me. But that's one of my catch 22s. I was a toy seller to begin with, and I was very niche to just GI Joe and making good money, but I couldn't find inventory. Like I was tapped out. And then I started testing different waters, and we expanded out. And we both quit our jobs right before COVID and went full time to be resellers.
Yeah, I love it. So just to bring it back to our original topic, Chris, what is the goal for you? Why are you doing this? What do you want the money for?
Pay off. Well, of course, everybody pay off the house.
Yeah.
I have one property. I'm actually in the course of selling. It was my house before. I had it rented out for the past 2 years. I just don't like dealing with renters anymore. She was a nightmare. So it's actually under contract to. I was super busy this weekend. Fridays when she moved out, I had to get everything set, everything fixed. They actually did a walkthrough on Friday with the client, unbeknownst to me, where I was trying to pull out the washer, dryer, and refrigerator because I wanted to take those and switch them out with the ones we had. So I worked like this whole weekend getting anything and everything fixed. So that's actually going to be a little bit estimated profit on that's about 57,000. So we have a couple credit cards we're paying off with that and a little bit extra. Um, but we don't like our mortgage on the house right now. I'll probably refinance because I have uh, the Montgomery GI Bill. So we're going to refinance the house. I think our mortgage is going to go down to about 650. And then we just have a couple credit cards, and like my trucks, I paid off my truck this past year.
Love
And
it.
then my girlfriend's got about one more year on her car. It's just getting to the point of, like Dave Ramsey, like debt free. Um, and I want to grow the business where I'm making average of for clothing $300 a day. I want to do with the decal business $100 a day, and then the other store just, it's kind of like a wish wash. Uh, we want to try to keep that store between 20 and 25,000 net for every 3 months, and that because it's so random with what we sell on that store. So it's just kind of throw up. And I mean that one store will be about 100K for just that everything store.
Okay. So I think this is great. Thank you for sharing, Chris. I
Yep.
think everyone has been really motivated by real estate. They've been asking about real estate because tech is, mini real estate investor, or that's what he calls himself, or he puts that he dabbles in real estate, but he's actually quite knowledgeable and has a huge portfolio of real estate properties. So I think a lot of people have the goal to turn reselling money into real estate, and real estate's a bit more passive. Um, so we'll stick on that topic of trying to save up for a property. James, you had a 50K goal. Was that for real estate? Why did you set a goal of 50,000 in savings?
Yeah, hi Chris. It was mainly to bring the mortgage down on the current property. To be honest, my first goal was to pay off this house before I invest in a second property. And we're trying for family. So because my wife is a nanny, when we have children, we don't want to have to pay for childcare when she has years of experience of raising children from
Mm,
babies right up until 5, 6. So yeah, where I am at the moment with the monetary goal, I was a bit naive, I don't mind saying, thinking to be that easy. And that was because I was going from 12 items to 20 items. And I didn't take into account that actually eBay needs to see you be consistent for 3 months plus before it starts rewarding you for the extra activity. And also at that point, as you know, I was an everything seller and I was doing everything and anything. And I felt for me, 6 weeks ago, I realized I hit a cap. So I thought, how much of an everything store could I build? Maybe 30 items max.
mm.
And yeah, so I'm slowly making the change and niching down to clothing. And so I think next year is going to be a lot easier to save that 50 grand.
I love it. I wanted to share something about the $100,000 profit goal, and in regards to what James said about 30 items. If you list 10 items a day at $30 profit, that's 100K. And I think most experienced pickers, and if you know how to use your phone to look up solds, if you went shopping 8 hours a day, you would guarantee be able to do that. If you went seriously looking for stuff for 8 hours all day and you had a listing goal of 10 times 30, you could definitely do it. But most likely you wouldn't be a true everything seller, meaning like kayak, um, cast ironware, rare painting. You wouldn't be that wide. You would be like more narrow, like maybe furniture, hard goods, some clothing. You would like true everything seller in my mind means you look at every single item in a thrift store. And that's not what people do. They walk in, they go straight to one section. Nobody walks in, they start with the first item on the left and finish on the last item on the right. Like that's impossible. It would take you 19 hours to go through one thrift store if you looked at every single item. So 10 times 30 is definitely a thing, but it's like exhausting, even for me thinking about going home and storing, cleaning, testing 10 different types of items. 30 a day in a couple categories is what a lot of people do. Like one person in the group was doing one dresser, one car, 10 clothing. Like that's pretty random, but you could do that. You could do 10 clothing, 10 shoes. But the wider it is, the more difficult it is to achieve that kind of goal of 50K savings, which I I really, really, really like that goal because before we go to Isaiah, if you have a really strong goal like that, it's easy not to deviate. If your goal is like, oh, I just want to make a little extra money, you won't do anything. But I want to save $50,000, you have to do a lot of things to knock that out. It's like everything needs to change, your habits, your baseline, um, everything. needs to change. Isaiah, what's up?
I was looking for the Chris dude, but I think he's gone. Did I miss him?
What's up, Isaiah? Who are you looking
No,
for?
I'm sorry.
Oh, Chris is here.
I'm not sure. I don't see his. I was just gonna ask him, like, so it. I was listening to the conversation while I was upstairs still, and like, so are you able to do two things? Number one for Chris, when people say like being an everything seller, do you think what they actually mean is that they just haven't chosen a niche yet, so their barriers to what they pick up is less strict than it is for like niche down sellers? Like when people say I'm an everything seller, they just mean I don't necessarily have a niche, so I pick up whatever I can make profit on. For you,
Or which Chris are you talking to?
Chris Lynn.
I think it's because they don't meet their listing goal. They're like, I want to list 10 a day, but there are only 5 jackets. So I'm just going to pick up 5 other things at this thrift store. Instead of going to 10 more thrift stores to find 5 more clothing items, they just squeeze it out of that one location. That's generally what happens. People don't reach their listing goal, so they pick up other things. In my opinion, that's like the easy way to not have to drive around more.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Do you have a question for the other Chris?
Yeah, I do. I have one for him too.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know if I was misunderstanding or not. So, are you saying that you did like 193K profit?
No, we did between all the stores. It was about 175. It was 160. We just didn't include when I gave Tech the numbers to be a 100K call. I just gave them from the 2 stores. I didn't do the decal store or the commission based store, which wasn't that much. With the commission base, we would take one client at a time and just whatever they brought us for like collections, we wouldn't overdo it. So we never advertised. So if we came across somebody that we didn't want to buy a collection from, we would just, like, we did a NASCAR. The last one was a huge NASCAR collection. We did a Hallmark collection. Another one was a couple pallets from like Home Depot, Lowe's from somebody else. So it's kind of, that was the commission base. But I mean, we would go between the flea market, pallet liquidation, every place else, anything that would make a profit. I mean, we've sold deer stands, full mount. That was a pain in the ass just because they're so heavy and moving those around. We have one of the things we still have listed, which is kind of crazy, is it's an ATM, internal ATM mechanics. Thing's huge. So hasn't sold yet, but that's close to $1,000. So we've literally taken like anything and everything that we were seeing before.
Yeah, I got like 2 more for you.
Right.
So is it like about 160, 170K in sales? When you're doing the like everything model where you're picking up these like not specifically niche down items, do you find that you have really high margins on them? Do you know like what the average margin are for?
I don't. We were so shooting from the hip. Like I know taxes last year. Like I couldn't even tell you. I would have to go back in my taxes, but I know I paid almost 28,000 in taxes, and then my girlfriend, she paid I think another 12 on top of that for like our profits. Like I have never tracked numbers, so that's something else. Like that's something new completely. Like I haven't even tracked like what I've been spending like per week, so that's completely new. I just knew we made this much. It looks like we're making money, and then it's like, oh, we made this. Like when our taxes came back, we're like, oh, we didn't realize we made that much. Like, it was kind of a slap in the face. So I'm like, I really need to get this like honed down and, get everything organized and basically see where the numbers really are. So
last one is it seems like you're involved in real estate in some type of way. What kind of methods are you guys using in order to transfer the income that you're making in the eBay business into like actual properties to kind of build
so the properties were like every property that we've bought and sold was a personal house. The market here I'm actually in Wilmington, North Carolina. I was making almost $600 above what my mortgage was. Here the rent is so insane. Like you can purchase a house and turn around the next day and be making $500-600 renting it out. Like apartments, there's a housing shortage for rentals. But every house I've made between, and it's been like me and my ex-wife had a house, we made 40 to 50,000 on that. The next house we made 80 and I had to split it with her. And then this was my last house when I was single,
I think
that I rented out for the past 2 years.
I think I might have misasked the question. I meant more along the lines of like how, you know how Chris was talking about in his SEP IRA, he puts like 6K or something like that in there per month. Like how do you go about taking the eBay money and then transferring it over into properties? Like, are you like, we save 50% of the eBay money or 20%, or we have this account that's over here on the side where we put all the money to, that way we can, like how does
it wasn't at that point. It was just, like if we're running like positive, we would just move some money over. There wasn't really a rhyme or reason. It's just what our profits were showing. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, totally. Thank you so much, man. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. I want to take that thought that we just talked about and compare it to what Anitra posted in the group. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but Anitra posted in her group that she redid her numbers and sort of realized she didn't exactly know what was going on at all, even after being in the group for a while. Everyone needs to do that. You need to understand where your numbers are, because Chris, I know for sure you're not doing your expenses right. You should not owe that much in tax because you're not expensing the proper things. So you are definitely overestimating your income. And that's not like, you would save money ultimately understanding more of what the expenses are. Cause I don't know exactly where you are at, but I know for sure there are expenses you're not including. That's why your tax burden is so high. Because yeah, I don't know. We'll have to look at it together and just figure out how to narrow it down. But it all starts with being small. When you start with doing transactions by one, then by week, or by day, then week, then month, then you really start to get where all the bills, how all the expenses work together. But yeah, I don't know exactly what it is, but I think I can tell that you're not accounting for all the expenses, so you're paying too much in tax. But every time I go back and look at my numbers, I feel like a beginner, because it's so humbling to be like, oh wow, like this is like, because okay, I'll give you an example. My workers have no idea what the profit loss is. When I say, how'd you guys do today? They say, great. They have no idea, but they say, great. I know, because after they're done, I look at what happened, but they have no idea. So it's not until you investigate after till you figure it out. But Blake?
What's going on, Chris? I want to kind of piggyback off of one of our conversations from the other day, but it kind of relates to this, is like knowing what you're shooting for, your numbers. I think you did Johnny's the other day. It was 5 million.
Yeah.
Was it 10 years?
Yep.
I want to do 1 million in 3.
1 million in 3 years. Okay. So do you know why? Why do you want that money?
It's just a goal. Yeah, I would like to, and also I was saying it applies to this, is turn that into real estate, make it something of a passive income, something that and it's an investment.
Yeah. Okay. So it'll be easier if you know what the money is for. So when you start being more specific about what the $1 million is used for, like a down payment for this type of property in this type of area, I think that's really useful because it gets the juices running for how to put together all the steps between now and 3 years. But let's just start with 1 million in 3 years. I like that goal too. So for real estate, let's just call it that. What do you sell? Or actually, not what do you sell? How much money do you make per item?
ASP right now is $42.
Okay. And then what do you think you net on that?
Probably, yeah, that's another thing I was gonna ask. I do not know, I mean, numbers, so I'm kind of like the last guy. I'm doing a good business, I feel like, but at the same
Yep.
time, I have no idea my numbers. Be honest.
So you're not alone. So in the book we talk a lot about the one thing, and it's a book by Gary Keller, and Brian also posted in the Facebook group that he has a podcast that he talks with people about their business. And it's in one of the podcasts, he said that he went to a Chamber of Commerce meeting with like 30 or 40 successful business people. None of them knew their numbers. No idea. They're just making more money than they spend. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So a lot of people just make more money than they spend and they have no idea. But I know, like when I run an auction by myself, I make a little over $11 profit per item. When my staff runs it, it's about $5.66 an item profit that they make. But the thing is, that allows me so much more visibility into my business, and I can now guess how long it will take me to make $1 million or whatever, because the numbers are more specific. But the $42 ASP is good that you know that. Now you need to back out all the expenses and to figure out the exact number. But let's just use a third as an example. So let's just assume $14 profit on 42 ASP. What are you selling per week right now?
Per week, let's see, I can check real quick. Past 31 day, a week, 1,200.
1,200. I'm sorry, 1,200 items?
No, sorry. I think the last time I looked, it was like 160 a month. How do you look at that real quick?
I'm sorry. Let me back up for a second. How many do you list each week?
Listing 70 each week, 10 a day.
Okay, 10 a day. So if you're listing 70 a week times $14 profit, that's like right on the money for $1,000 a week profit. Because that's 70 sold. You list 70 a week. How many do you sell a week?
We're selling about 5 or 6 a day.
Five to
Five to six items a day.
Okay, 6 items a day.
6 items a day.
Great. So 6 items a day. So you're in a perfect situation to grow your listing goal a little bit. If you wanted to go from 10 to 12 or 10 to 15, you'd probably be safe.
So we were just trying to get a month or 2 in of just 10 a day, being consistent.
What is the let's see here. So 10 a day, 70 a week. You want to be more consistent. Let me think here. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When you say we, what do you mean?
I'm sorry, me and my wife.
You and your wife. Okay. Okay. So $1 million in 3 years. $1 million in 3 years is not possible.
Okay.
You would have to totally change everything, but you could probably gross $1 million in 3 years, but like netting $1 million would not be possible. Not with this plan.
Okay.
But okay, so this is how we're going to work on this. What is the, let's see. Actually, you know what? Let's just do it because we did it with Johnny. 1 million in 3 years. Is that in the bank?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. What state do you live in?
I live in Alabama, so expenses are low.
Okay, so if you go $1 million in Alabama, it's more reasonable there tax wise. I'd say like that's 1.75 million that you'd have to make. So after tax, you get $1 million in the bank. So let me do the math here. 175 divided by 3 years is, you have to make $1,600 profit a day, which is 114 items sold a day, which, crazy enough, there are people in the group who do that. So it's not that crazy. It does.
Yeah.
Does everyone in here think it's ridiculous that in 3 years you have $1 million in the bank? Kind of. Sounds kind of ridiculous, right? Like You maybe you're at home making extra money for the family and you want to like contribute $1,000, but then all of a sudden in 3 years you have $1 million in the bank. That sounds crazy, but 114 sold every day doesn't sound that crazy. Starting now, yeah, you have to sell
Right.
114 items right now for 3 years,
Right.
but at least now we know,
Yeah. And
right?
I'm assuming, and I can't say every single item, I'm assuming that $14 profit is actually more on a 46. Yeah, like because
It
I'm a
might be,
bulk seller.
yeah, it might
Yeah,
be,
and I'm a bulk seller, so I get my stuff pretty cheap.
yeah.
But I can't say every single item is $14, if that makes sense. Like some is like extremely
No,
high.
of course not, but you're not saying every item sells for 42 either.
Right, correct.
It's an average. But you have to list and sell 114 items a day from now for 3 years in order to have $1 million in the bank. The thing is, that's not possible, but it is. Oh, sorry, that's not possible for you in your current situation.
Right.
So the way to do it is, what is different from selling 6 a day, Blake, and selling 114 a day, Blake?
Okay.
That's the mentality. So that is really useful because you can now figure out what is the difference between these two people. That
Yeah.
Blake is not the same person right now. Your wife wouldn't even recognize that person.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't
Sad.
recognize that person. You'd be totally different. You would every single thing about you would be different.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and definitely need to increase the listing goal then. Definitely.
so a realistic way of increasing. So Kate is asking, could you develop it further as to how many Blake would need to list a day, please? Sure. So assuming Blake is going to grow the way that I want him to grow, which is like safely and without risking too much anything, he would just grow to 12 listings right now and be patient until it goes from 6 sales a day to 7 sales a day. Then bump it up to 14, then be patient until it gets to 8 sales a day, then bump it up again. It could take as little as like 2 or 3 years before you're selling 100 a day if you continue on that pace. The problem is, as your store grows, it's difficult to maintain that sell-through rate.
Right.
Well, the other thing is that you have to have the average 114 a day. So he needs to list at the end like 300 a day.
Yeah, definitely. You would
So-
have to at the end be, if you're going to start at 0 or not 0, but
Well,
6.
he's at 6 right now. So getting to 6 to 114, there's that delay of a year and a half. So if he wants to get it in 3 years, you have to build up to like 300-ish. Because the overall average of the 3 years has to be 114.
There's also the infrastructure cost, like rising cost of goods, rising cost of stamps, etc.
Yeah.
More warehouse space.
Well, I mean, 119 items a day, if we're going by 1% sell-through rate, is a 10,000 item store roughly. You could theoretically do that at home. It would probably be a two-car garage plus 1 bedroom. You could fit 10,000 items, but I would definitely recommend an external space. But you can see how the pieces need to be different.
Sure.
But if you can raise your ASP, that all changes too.
You could also raise your
Or your
ASP.
sell-through.
But $14 profit an item is amazing. If you could actually continue that, that's insane. That's very, very strong. You'd be the top 1% of sellers if you could do 14% times 100. That's really rare. I mean, the people who make $300,000 a year is really rare. It's like only one out of 250 people. It's really rare. Like it's just because that person is so rare. You can't do what everybody else is doing. Everybody sells everything.
Right.
Everybody selling everything means you'll be like everybody else. We don't want to be like everybody else in this group. We want to be ahead of everybody else. So that's why we're recommending narrowing down. And you want to know exactly what your numbers are, because I'm just going to sound weird, but isn't it? I can't think of anything sexier than knowing your numbers, because it means you're an expert.
You're confident.
You're confident. You're like just different. You're different. If you understand, even if you have a 1-a-day store and you know your numbers, it's different. Like if I were to ask Nancy, what's your store like today? And she said, I sold 2 items for $17.30 profit. That to me is awesome. I sold 500, but I have no idea what I made. That's not as interesting to me. It's like, I don't know. It's like I don't know. I saw this lady that her monthly bills were $27,000 a month, right? And she knew exactly what she needed to do it. So I'm like, good for you. She knows that in order to pay for her insane lifestyle, she has to work 82 hours a week in this industry doing this, but she has it. At least she did it. That's more interesting to me than people that don't have a goal and they just make more than they need. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with making more than you need and don't worry about it. But it just being in the dark, like it makes me feel sad that Chris paid too much money to the IRS.
Yeah.
He's not supposed to pay that much on
I'm
that
with
kind
you.
of revenue. There's expenses that are not accounted for in there. Yeah, but it's the numbers part
Yeah.
is awesome.
How can I get, I think I asked this to Tag last night. It was just like the next step in knowing my numbers. Like, what is the very first step?
The next step is the first step, which is just that people don't like me talking about this, but it's just selling one item and writing it down on paper and figuring out how much profit you make. And then you do that for the 6 items that you sold today.
Okay.
And get an idea. And then you're like, oh, if I do this times 10, I sell 60 items a day and it's this amount. So right now, if you were to reach Resar Nirvana, so let's say you and your wife are patient until you're listing 10, selling 10. How many items are in your store?
I've got 1,300.
Okay. So around 2,000 items, most likely. Hopefully before then. Between 1,500 and 2,000 items, you're going to start listing 10, selling 10. When you and your wife know exactly how much money you are making at that point, 10 times that is $1 million in 3 years, essentially.
Okay.
So, and there's nothing wrong with taking 10 years and having $1 million in the bank. Doesn't have to be 3 years, but if you want to turbocharge that, it's just coming down to how much money did you make today? How much money is literally going out of your bank account? Like I don't think I've in my entire life looked at how much my registration cost until yesterday. It just comes in and I pay it. The DMV sends you the thing and you just pay it. And yesterday I was like, how can it be this much money? It seems ridiculous for this car. This Toyota costs $453 to register.
California,
like, what about
baby?
the guy down the street with a Lamborghini? Actually, I don't live in that neighborhood, but somebody down in a different street, they're paying $3,000 a year just to park their car in their driveway. They're paying $3,000 a year. So I was just like, holy crap. So the expenses part is the key here. Very few people in the group know how much money they're making per item. But yeah, I'm like obsessed with it now because I feel like the secret to growing is just in selling one individual item. And then when Tech was doing that example of, he had that calendar back from 2018 where every single day it put $500 profit, $600 profit, $800 profit. That's like such a great tool into what your business does.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that. And yeah, and I just wanted to really know, is that realistic? 3 years, $1 million, then it gives you something to shoot for. Because if it's unrealistic, or if you need to just grind as hard as you can to get there. So
this is great because when Isaiah called me on last Friday was the first day we started talking about these kind of goals. And I told Isaiah that these ideas were crazy, right? And Isaiah said, they're not crazy. And then after the call, I was like, I know why I think they're crazy, because the plan doesn't match. You're doing 10 a day. Why are we talking about 114 a day? That sounds crazy to me. If you had a 114 plan, then it's not crazy.
That's true.
Right? You got to be like, okay, 114 means I'm sourcing 700 items. I'm sorry, I'm listing 700 items a week. A 2-week draft bank is A 2-week draft bank at 100 a day is 1,400 items in your draft bank, right? Let's assume that it costs you $10 to get an item and list it. So that's $14,000 just in your draft bank. If you're selling 100 and you have 10,000 listed, those 10,000 items cost you 100,000 to list. So if you had $100,000 in inventory already listed, $14,000 in your draft bank for the next 2 weeks, you are an expert in your category. You've been selling 100 a day for a while now. Then it makes sense in 3 years you have $1 million in your bank account. That plan is not crazy. That's normal. But to go from 10 to 114, it's not crazy. It's just crazy to do that overnight. It just takes some time. Yeah.
I was actually talking with my wife at breakfast this morning, and I was just telling her, I was like, what would happen if we went to 20? I think we can, we've done 10, pretty realistically over the last month and a half. And yeah, I don't know if we shouldn't jump to 20. It just should be jump to 12.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I saw this hotel in Japan. They were trying to get to 500 locations or something, and they were 499. And the guy had been there for just 4 or 5 years. He could not crack. He's like, he couldn't open another one. It was just really difficult. And he's just like, I'll eventually get there. I'll figure it out. I have the plan that I made apparently just gets me to here. So you just got to change your plan slightly to get to that next level. And that'll be the thing. Let's go, Michael, then Kate. Michael, what's up?
What's the most that you consistently listed on your own with no employees? Like, what can a single person do before we have to start doing HR or whatever?
Tech did 160 for a year by himself. The most I've ever done by myself is 40. And then with one person helping me, I did 70 for a whole year. That's where I was at. But now knowing what I know, I think that solo consistently all year, reasonable is probably 50 to 70, 40 to 70, one person.
And is that a 40-hour work week or a 60 or 100 for you?
That's a 40-hour work week.
Wow. Okay.
And that's so for clothing, because media people can list card people.
That's for clothing. For media, it's probably, let's just call it 100 a day.
Okay.
For media.
Okay.
Probably more, but we're talking 140 a day, Monday through Friday, if you want to take the weekends off as a media seller. And that's still significant. And clothing arguably is the slowest category, arguably, because there's so much to it. Kate, then Caleb.
Hi, Chris. I wanted to ask you, so if you were Blake and you had this goal that you wanted to go after, and you realize that your plan and your kind of current action does not match attaining that goal, what would you be exploring? What avenues? Would you be looking at increasing your profit margin, or trying to list more, or what are the avenues that are available that you would explore, and how would you go about it? Okay,
that's a great question, Kate. So the first thing I would do is figure out how long 10 listings takes me. That's the very first thing I would do. How long does it take? And I would say, okay, wow, 10 listings is taking me 4 hours. Okay, so 100 listings means 40 hours. And I'd be like, uh-oh, there are not 40 hours in a day. Okay, so I cannot do it I couldn't even do it if I worked all day. So I would have to become more efficient. So you'd have to work it out to, let me see here, 100. So he's doing it with his wife. So if they divided the work and did 50 a day each, and they spent 4 hours listing and 4 hours shopping, they would have to do 12 and a half listings an hour, which is around 4 listings a listing every 4 minutes. So that means photos for 1 minute, listing for 2 minutes, shipping 1 minute. Then you have that part. Then the other 4 hours of the day, they would each need to find 50 items.
Yeah.
That would be how you put together that plan. And then Michael asked the question, what's reasonable for one person to do? I think 40 to 70 by yourself in half a day is doable. And then clothing is the most difficult category. So 40 to 70 in first half of the day, and the second half of the day find the rest of the items, or first half of the day find them, however you organize your day. But I definitely still recommend doing customer service when you wake up. But that's the plan for that's how I would get from 10 to 100. I'd figure out how long 10 takes.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
So that's like the efficiency side of it, but at the same time, you don't recommend to grow fast, even if they like tomorrow say, okay, cool, we can actually do now 100. You would still not recommend doing that, would you? So, like,
if you were to do the recommended of like 4% growth a week, it still wouldn't take very long. Honestly, it takes 2 or 3 years to get to 100. It's just nobody's consistently improving 4% every week. Most people jump way higher than that. They go from 10 to 20, fail, and then go back to 5. To be patient, like I've been going to the gym now for 3 months, and every week we go up a little bit. And today I noticed it. Today I really felt it. I was like, this is so much easier than when I started. When I started, it was so hard. All these exercises were so difficult. Now I'm starting to get the hang of it. Am I good at it? No, I'm not. I would be considered a beginner still, but it's still so much easier than when I first started. But we're only increasing the weight by like 1 pound a week. I'm not really even noticing. But if I were to increase the weights by a lot, I would 100% get injured, and that's what people do. They get injured growing their stores because they move too fast.
I guess then also it's important to have some milestones in between, because like saying, okay, cool, we're going to be super consistent and in 3 years you're going to get what you want. That's like a really long shot. Maybe if you have
right. It sounds weird because I was thinking about that, Kate. I was like, as long as I just keep coming here for a year, I'll get what I want. I don't like in Atomic Habits, he breaks it down like you want to get in shape. That turns into you got to go to the gym. You got to go to the gym. It means that you got to get in your car, which means that you got to put your running shoes on, which means you got to put your workout clothes on, which means you got to set your workout clothes next to your bed before you go to sleep. You break it down all the way back to the easiest part of it to do.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that is it for me today. It took me 1 less minute to get out of bed. I even noticed it because it normally takes me like 12 minutes to get out of bed. I noticed being 1 minute earlier. Because it's like just 1 minute earlier I can do,
so
just slowly.
Just the last thing into this kind of question. So you would focus like on efficiencies and on slow growth, and so you haven't mentioned like seeing whether you can, I don't know, improve your ASP or your margin, or even considering this the category that will get you to that goal. Is it something you would also think about, or would you just take what is already tested and work with that? Is that your thinking?
Okay, so this is a great question. I think that the best way to increase your ASP and let's see, the best way to increase your ASP and the best way to increase how many listings you have each week is going to be reserved for our private call. So let me turn off the YouTube.